Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Botswana's Minerals Minister was optimistic this week that the country's potential in copper, silver and coal mining could surpass the area's aging diamond mines. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, Botswana's government is in a race against time to find alternatives to diamond mining in the industry. And copper and silver are seen as viable options for this. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, they've left it late with the diamonds. Their dependency on Jwaneng is horrific. They've got a dependency of 40% in their economy from diamonds. Their diamond mining mines are aging. They're going deeper. They're more costly. And Jwaneng particularly is a major contributor. So when Jwaneng needs money, they pour it in. They poured in 11 billion pula after the meltdown, and that was just half of the amount. De Beers had to throw in another 11 billion, so it was 22 billion pula. So it's a lot of money it has having to go into this mining now, and they're not finding big mines anymore. They're finding kimberlites, but they all give rise to small mines. So the whole mindset is changing there. So they realize that their dependence on diamond mining is too huge, and they must release that dependence. But they're still going to be heavily dependent on diamonds, but at a different level. They're at a far more service level. So, all the aggregation that takes place in London now is going to take place in Gaborone from the end of 2014. So it means that $7 billion worth of diamonds, not all of them from Botswana now, because they're coming from all over the world. So they're turning themselves into the center of gravity of diamonds, which is clever, because they're losing on the diamond mining side, but they're gaining on the downstream side, will be traded in Botswana. $7 billion worth, depending on what De Beers sells. Now, that requires a lot of banking backup. It requires a good airport, because the people are going to come flying in. They're going to stay over for that sighting period where they buy the diamonds. They're going to need restaurants. They're going to need catering. They're going to need security for those diamonds. Very big business. So a lot of linkages are starting to emerge now in this between now and 2014 that will strengthen this diamond position. But they are determined to diversify. And they've always spoken coal. Coal is going to be the big thing for the diversification. But they were cock-a-hoop this week with copper and silver. It just shows you, if you let the private sector in, brother, they'll find stuff. Now, they've got like 1,000 prospecting licenses out there. That's how many prospecting. Susan Shibanga in South Africa, our minister, said, look, we underexplored, overexploited. Why aren't you guys applying for exploration licenses? Up there, the people have gone in. TSX listed companies, ASX listed companies, AIM listed companies, are all dashed for those prospecting licenses. Not too many South African companies, unfortunately. Those, you get a young 30-something, a person who's about 35, he teams up with a chartered accountant. Mm-hmm. He gets himself a mining engineer. He's a geologist. They list on, say, the ASX or the TSX. They go in there, they get a concession, and brother, these guys work fast. They're young, they're ambitious, they want to do something. They are already producing copper from this new copper belt that they've established between Maun and Ganzi. They can see similarities in that copper belt to what is in the Central African copper belt. What is in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is the prettiest girl on the copper block. And then you've got Zambia, not too bad. They're not saying that theirs is as rich as Central Africa, but they're saying it's got similarities. And they've got the co-product, the silver. Silver is doing well. So the Minister of Minerals in Botswana, Panacheko Kedekilwe, he was over the moon, because he's saying that he believes that this has got the potential to actually do more for Botswana than diamonds has done. It could, from a mining point of view, he's not talking the whole picture of diamonds, but from a mining point of view, this could be bigger in time than diamonds. And we know what diamonds has done for Botswana. Botswana is diamonds.
Yes.
The whole mainstay of the economy. So it is quite an important discovery.
Now, as you've mentioned, that Minister Kedekilwe says Botswana aims to entice, lure and goad companies to search for non-diamond minerals. Can you elaborate on how he intends to do that?
What a triplicate of words, eh? He wants to entice. He wants to lure. He wants to goad. He does it. In the conference where there are about 400 people, all guys anxious to go, coming in from 7 countries. You know, not only have you got the guys listed in Australia, listed in Toronto, but you've got a lot of Koreans, you've got Eastern people coming into this conference. I've never seen a minister take part in the debate like this guy does. He's got more questions than any of the journalists, you know, after the speakers. And then he says, okay, and now we can arrange our site meeting. He goes out there, and on every mine site, he has a consultation. And he doesn't only speak to the miners. That's when he brings in the farmers, and they say, hey, you're damaging our water, and they start dealing with it. You know, he deals with the local community, and nearby community. They say, we're getting no jobs from this. So he's got a lot of consultation all the time, which I think prevents any political backlash from happening too quickly. So he's active, and his big thing is that he must enable, he must facilitate. So he has been bringing in these smaller companies, but although they're smaller companies and you think, gee, they're doing tiny stuff, they think big, these guys, you know, and they also work as a collective. So before you know where you are, you've got a small seed, you know, giving you the idea that it's going to be a big tree one day.
Now, can you tell us about the coal opportunities in Botswana? What makes that so attractive?
You see, on the eastern side of Botswana, close to our western side of our boundary, we've got the big Waterberg. Now, you know, these coal deposits, they know no boundaries. You know, they don't know political boundaries. So, of course, this deposit goes right across into Botswana. And so there's a lot of coal on that eastern border. And again, the guys are starting to be visionary. They're saying, look, you must do 3 things with this coal. Not just think of, 4 things really. But they want to export. Obviously, every coal miner wants to export, but they're landlocked. So, you know, the biggest challenge is getting those rail lines linked up, etc. Do we go west to Namibia? Do we go east to Maputo? All that sort of idea. A lot of money involved. They're saying, look, the best way is to link up to the transmission lines, never mind the railway lines. So, you know, let us take this coal, produce electricity from it. We've got the logistics set up there. We could even come over the fence into South Africa if need be. But we're looking at the power pool, and we see that the Southern African power pool's got deficits, which are growing. We see that Eskom is supplying at the moment, but all these contracts are up for renewal. You know, will Eskom still have that appetite? We could get into that gap, and they're young guys, so they're working hard to do it. So, not massive big power stations, in fact, very moderate power stations. So you go to, you know, African Energy, listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. They've got a captive coal mine, low cost, very low cost coal mine, shallow, and they're going to put up their own power station, 300 megawatts. Okay, modest. You know, you see Kalahari Energy, even more modest, you know, and like with a crazy setup, they've got 90 megawatt at the moment, and they're using diesel. You know, of all things, it's so expensive. But they say, look, this is only temporary because we've got the coal bed methane gas. So there's coal bed methane gas, again, linked to the coal. Our pipeline is being built. It'll soon be in there. We'll plug it in. Then we'll have a gas-fired, natural gas-fired power station. But they're already building a second power station, 180 megawatts nearby. So that whole eastern side, we've also got CRC Energy listed on the TSX. They're thinking big. They have scaled down some of the operations, but they now see the planets aligning. They see that the business climate is changing, particularly because they think they'll get a power price agreement from South Africa, not through Eskom, but through the Ministry of Energy. That is their hope. So then they could send in to the region, if they get that agreement, 1,200 megawatts from Botswana. And the whole theme now was the plea to the government by all these young entrepreneurs was, let's turn this into a major energy corridor, because we're sitting right in the center of Southern Africa. So we can be multi-directional, north, south, east, west. We're right there in the middle. So we're well placed, and they're saying to the government, look, you've got the Botswana Power Corporation. It's a power generator. It buys some energy. Turn it into a big power trader. Must sit there and must be trading power. Let all the Southern African region come through this. So, they do think like that. The jury's still out. Will they do it? But at least they are thinking big.
Now, also the government has stated that it wants the private sector to have maximum freedom in mining. Can you elaborate?
This is again Panacheko Kedekilwe. You know, he says, look, we can't do it. These private sector acts, they've got a lot of energy. They can raise the capital. What I want to do is enable them. I want to facilitate them. I want to talk to them. I want to say to them, look, is it competitive enough here? You know, can we sharpen up our competitiveness? You got enough water. He's built 3 dams. The third one is just coming through. Have you got enough power? He's put up a power station, 600 megawatt coming through. You know, what can we do for you? Because you better do something for us as well. You know, because we need revenues in tax. Are you going to be profitable? Are we going to get those? Let's help you to be profitable. And a turn up for the books. I mean, you know, in all the mining jurisdictions in the world, they are saying, look, we want more tax from these miners. And it always is a Johnny-come-lately thing because mining is cyclical. So when it goes through the super cycle, all the governments say, no, we want more rents, we want more tax. And then as they come to that point to get them, then it's down again because it's too late, which is what's happening now. He's saying, no, let me lower your fiscal burden. So he's cut the tax for the mining companies from 25% of corporate profits to 22%. So he keeps on talking, he keeps on engaging. How can we sharpen up our competitiveness? And he says we must have maximum effort from the private sector because those are the people that will get things done.
Sounds like something South African government could learn from.
Well, it's taking place at a time when the South African government is at Gallagher Estates and talking about how you can get more from mining. They want to extract the resource rents you know, there is a time when that's legitimate. We must realize that Botswana government has 50% of the diamond business. And, you know, I said to Panacheko Kedekilwe, you know, isn't it time that you withdrew from that? He thought of it. I said, because you're not actually using that model in the copper and silver. You're not using that model in the coal. So why have you got that model? Look, he said that model served us very well. I said, even when you had to plow an 11 billion pula, you know, you should be using the 11 billion pula for, you know, the power stations, for the roads, for the water, for the clinics, for the health, for the school. But he says he still likes that model. So that's where they get their rents, you see. And so he said, look, I mean, who knows, maybe we'll apply that model elsewhere. But I get the feeling that it may not happen that way because, you know, you've got to, it's a different era in Botswana. And he does seem to be giving the private sector as much rein as he can and helping them. They seem to be responding. I mean, they get up on the public platforms and they wax lyrical about Botswana. All these guys. Okay, they're probably talking their own book. They want a few favors down the line. But one gets the impression that they really like working there. And that if the government asks them something, they do it. Like the government said, you know, we want your companies to be listed on the Botswana Stock Exchange as well. We've got, you know, because they send a lot of Botswana people into the world to get trained at top universities, you know, Oxford and Harvard and everything. When these people come back, they need jobs. Saying, look, we need them to come into the financial services, etc. You know, what about listing on the Botswana Stock Exchange? He just says it and they just go on. You know, so they're all listed as well on the Botswana Stock Exchange, which enables the Botswanan people through their pension funds to also invest in the mining activity around there, so that when they get to pension age, you know, surely they're going to do something good out of the resources in the industry. But there is a complaint that there's not much trading on this. It's the same as the South African situation where you don't have a lot of retail traders. But the companies still do it. They still list because the government just said once, you know, we'd like that. So your wish is our command sort of thing in those sort of circumstances.
Well, it's very fascinating. Thank you, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.